afternoon. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to our regular Wednesday Wisdom brought to you by BW Education in association with BW Businessworld. Today we have Professor V Venkata Ramana, who is the Vice Chairman of the Telangana Higher Education Board, who joins us to talk to us about the future of higher education. Welcome, Professor T. Venkata Ramana. How have you been? How have been the last 9 months for you personally and professionally?
It's been a testing time, but I think it was an opportunity to me, and of course, to the state of Telangana, which you are aware, is making rapid strides. And I see 2021 as a game changer for many of us. Many of us are in our mid-career kind of activity. So I think it is great. It's been a little tough in the beginning, but I think it was wonderful.
Okay. Now tell us, I asked you this privately when I had a private conversation with you briefly, that, while COVID, we know the impact on lives and livelihood it has had in terms of education. COVID has done two things simultaneously. It has created a digital equalization, and it has also been a digital divider. Because a lot of government schools across states, there were lack of tablets, there were lack of connectivity. So COVID ended up creating a digital divide. Give us a sense in terms of the state of Telangana. What did it do to make sure there was no digital divide?
Okay. First of all, I must agree that, and I must tell you some facts. What it took 25 years to reach a stage of 25% of digitalization. I think, now if you look at in the last 7-8 months, we have reached up to 50%. My very good friend and mentor, Dr. PVR Mohan Reddy from the Science, the chairman of Science and also the author of the IT, was very thrilled, and he said this will reduce the inequalities which we have in so-called top tier and lower kind of a thing. But having said that, we quickly realized in the state of Telangana that there is this problem going to happen, and there's going to be a learning loss and probably a loss of a year, academic loss. And what we did was, we tried to sensitize the children that, you could probably have of getting to classes. And what we did, we have a wonderful channel in Telangana called the TSAT, the Telangana Satellite Channel, in which we beamed all these lessons. In the beginning, it was a lot of difficulty because the availability of the time was very less. But nevertheless, in the last 6-7 months, 5 to 6 months, I think it has been a great experience seeing village students from not so well connected villages and suburban areas reaching out to places where they could access this information. Second thing, as you are aware, Annurag, with your years of experience, the state of Telangana and mostly the southern states, I don't want to be biased as such, are very much, parents put a lot of emphasis on education, and in spite of all the difficulties in Kerala, something like and lot of out-of-box items. Also, it has added one more thing. It has given time to a lot of educationists like us to prune the syllabi, the curriculum, the way we teach, and probably reinvent new ways of teaching learning methodologies.
Thank you so much. You're right. It was a time to reflect and reset and reprioritize what policy enablers in education like you do. Now, tell us, if you had to look at 2021, what are the changes in the education ecosystem that you see they become part of our being, and what were temporary that may not stay?
First thing which I saw and I've been witnessing in the last few months is that right from top to bottom, for example, the policy maker at the Government of India level, then I'm talking from a nationwide perspective on all the educational levels. I'm not talking about higher education per se, though I work only in that space. I see that the complete governance model, the way we deliver, the way we govern, the way we administer institutions will change. there will be, if you remember late 90s when PV Narasimha Rao talked about LPG, I think the similar LPG will happen to the education sector. This is my biggest prediction. That is, there will be liberalization in the educational sector, private players will come, the license Raj will go, the survival of the fittest will come in. That is at the top echelons. The second level is the faculty teacher learning. No longer the role of a teacher will be just to probably come and deliver a talk and predictable exams, predictable classes, predictable placements. This will be completely changed. Students are free to take one course in Sriram College, Delhi, go to Chennai, go to Bangalore, go Xavier's, and come to Hyderabad. So we are talking about academic bank of credit. At the third level, what would happen is, so far hitherto we have probably underplayed the role of social sciences, humanities, and the other subjects. And we always tried, especially in the South, there are only two choices: either you become an engineer or a doctor. I think the choices will be many. The last one, which I see, the institutions themselves will be different. For example, different in size, different in scope, different in activity, and the educationists per se will have to wear a completely new lens to look at the scenario of education. Lastly, I would also urge people like you who have been working so hard to change the face of Indian higher education. I think the internationalization phase has already begun. We in the state of Telangana are already witnessing and getting the fruits out of it. Recently, we had signed an MOU with the Pittsburgh University, who are ready to set up an innovation center in Hyderabad. That's good news for all over the country. So that kind of thing we are going to witness, I'm sure, shortly. In the long term, Indian campuses will be set up abroad. We also have plans for establishing good universities abroad. And there will be a lot of friendly foreign countries who would be willing to work with India. So these are the multiple opportunities. And lastly, multidisciplinarity will come. I have a lot of things to say, but I think I'll wait for you.
So you preempted my next question, which was about the national education policy, which everyone has appreciated in its intent, in its comprehensiveness. Because again, if you build a policy that again, after 3 decades, that policy needs to be futuristic, at least 10 years, 20 years ahead. So, while we can bog down in granularity and in detailing and in execution, the fact is it's a vision document, right? Give us a sense of what are the priorities in the new education policy, in the national new education policy that need to be done ASAP, and what can be faced in a near, medium term and long term.
I think let's look at it like doable. First is we should congratulate the Government of India, MHRD, and the right people who have been at the top. Have been observing that. We have had several meetings. I'm glad to say that we were also consulting at the state level. So after 34 years, we got a very comprehensive policy. Many of my friends in industry say that this was kind of a balanced one between industry, university, because there is a complaint always that what we produce, the industry doesn't want. But in this case, I think, though some of the critics say it's completely westernized, I think gone are the days when we look at things with a colored glass. I would very, very vehemently argue for such a policy. B, states will have some flexibility, I hope, in the future to articulate the way we want. And C, it takes India into the next century with a trained batch of manpower who are globally suited for global position, yet locally grounded. Having said that, what are the challenges I see? Because you had asked me, I said it was very good, can be modified a little bit here and there. Challenges would mean how do you remove this, if I'm allowed to say, the caste system in the universities. I mean, you have a tier 1 university, you have a lowest university, you have a NAC A++, you have a super NAC category, and you have an average. And when we talk about academic bank of credit, how do you balance this out? For example, a central university, as you know, you have 3 types of universities: the central universities, the state universities, the deemed universities. How are you going to look at equalizing? Because you need to create a kind of a trust between these. The highbrow institutions would say, I don't care if you go to a college in anywhere, but I don't want to accept your credit. The challenges could be transfer, academic bank of credits, as we are talking, exit. This is the biggest challenge as I see. What did they say? Multiple entry, multiple exit. How is it going to happen? Who's going to take this thing? And lastly, with a plethora of regulators joining as a group, what is the representation of states into this? So these are some concerns which people are having, but I'm sure the wisdom of the decision makers and the policy managers will prevail, and some kind of a tier system will come in. Ultimately, you will have to reward the best. So there will be very good, like in the US, if you look at AACB, you have business schools which are accredited because they have gone through the whole process of hiring good faculty. So I think these are this thing, but overall it looks like a very doable thing. But in the next 8 to 10 years, this would be possible completely.
Okay, my last two questions. One is, as a policy maker, as an enabler for education, as a positive catalyst, you create the framework, you work with the ecosystem. What is the change in your role that you see as we move into 2021? Is there, first of all, any change in, you see a role change for yourself and your institution?
Absolutely. We are already witnessing it. For example, we in the state of Telangana, which is again a leader in the academic world, and after 6 years, we are witnessing a lot of change. I am definitely already practicing, and we are doing it last 3-4 years fully, is role of private sector, because we just started allowing private sector, private universities, because this was not at all a plan or a strategy which many states thought about. Probably there are a lot of United States, but involvement of private sector will be there. There will be increased R&D funding, liberalized rules for the faculty, and of course, the state universities with which I work, because we have 15 state universities and which have a different structure altogether, will have a complete policy overhaul. For example, you will have professional interactions with industry, you will have things like scholars in residence, you will have funded research, and you will be evaluating faculty not on just sheer degrees, but their academic performance and output. And as Amit Khare, who was the Secretary of MHRD, said, very well said, he said it should be output based and outcome based, and not based on how much we know. In the sense, typically our examination system will undergo a sea change. Our teaching learning process will undergo a sea change. Our reward system will undergo a sea change. And I am not surprised, I would not be surprised if the hiring system is also changed. It's not that you earn a year's experience and multiply by number of years and say I have 30 years of experience. But you will have to innovate, you have to integrate, you have to include the students' perceptions, and you will have to have a kind of entrepreneurial, academic entrepreneurship is what you require. That's what I am seeing and already doing. In fact, we partner with CII, NASSCOM, FICCI, with you also, Businessworld. We did a great summit. I look forward to the early COVID days to return back, pre-COVID days, so that we do a big event, and not just in Telangana. Networking will happen. States will work together. Institutions like Niti Aayog will come to states. And I think institutions like yours will be the facilitators and will build bridges between these hitherto islands of excellence which we are having today.
Okay, I agree. The future is more collaborative, it is more contactless, and if I may say, it is even more compassionate.
Yeah.
My last question to you. Education had its own, you talked about, I was doing a conversation just before I did with an entrepreneur who is into the mobility sector. And he said, people are discovering destinations in India. Yeah. While they're not being able to travel abroad, it is a boon for Indian. Now, in Indian education, a lot of Indian students would go to UK, Europe, but most of them to America for higher education. A lot of them. Just to tell you, even, I can give you take any university, between 5 to 8% students are Indian. In some cases, up to 10% students are Indian, okay, in higher education. in the known names in Europe and America. Now, do you see, because of COVID more and because of this flexibility this new policy brings, more students opting for Indian universities when it comes to higher education and Indian institutions of eminence for their studies? Do you see that shift to happen, or do you think it is a temporary disruption and people will go back to valuing the Ivy League institutions as they did pre-COVID?
I fully agree with you, Mr. Annurag. Only issue is that I don't think Indian students who are going abroad, majority of them whom I have known, go through agents and have their own share of problems. And I have seen in many, many institutions and they want to come back. But you rightly said that while the local or the within country institutions are great, we never allowed any student to enter our campuses. For example, look at these IITs and IIMs. We would only are some of these institutions. They have not thought about the huge potential the Indian students can offer. So there is a huge possibility that courses in family business, courses in retail, courses in packaging, courses in whatnot would definitely be offered by this, because they have to innovate and come out with some revenue models. B, there could be a immediate preference to neighbor country. For example, in countries like Singapore, countries like Japan would offer a great opportunity. In fact, after this meeting, I'm talking to a senior functionary of the Japanese, this thing where an Indian is settled. He got the Pravasi, the Indian Diaspora Award also, 2021 at 5:15. I'm talking to him. So he says that Japan is going to offer a lot of opportunities. So I think immediate, and Singapore, many people do not know, or they know, but they still are enamored by the US, Canada, Australia. Singapore has got top-notch universities, NUS, SMU, NTU, with whom we are working. So I think immediately the travel, etc., may not be possible. But since you said collaboration, since we discussed about it, a lot of foreign scholars can be flown into the country, and that's an opportunity for an Indian. And you could have dual degrees, you could have joint certification program, you could have twinning programs. So the opportunities are many. But there's also an observation. I was talking to the consulate of the US consulate. There is a dip in the number of students, including time before COVID. So I don't think the erstwhile craze or this thing, and students will be very picky, because now they have got a lot of information. The web is another source, and people are getting more connected to this world because we are all in a wired kind of a society. And I think there's a great opportunity, especially for all the institutions, because they can look at courses which can agriculture. I'm sure there is going to be a huge demand for agriculture, power sector, education, training, and what?
Healthcare.
What I was about to say, healthcare.
In supply chain management, in agriculture, as you rightly talked about, in agri-tech. So, all the sectors are opening up, and technology is being a big driver. So clearly there is, in course curricula, will need to inculcate more technology inputs, more entrepreneurship inputs,
which we talk about. If we convert it, it becomes an opportunity. I'm sure Prime Minister Modi is looking at it. And I think a lot of areas which we have not thought hitherto will keep happening.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor P. Venkata Ramana, for talking to BW Education and the weekly BW Education Wednesday Wisdom. I'm sure our viewers will find it relevant. It will also be on the BW Education website. It will be in the next issue of BW Education. So thank you for talking to us, and we look forward to more conversations with you to be able to decipher what the future holds for the education ecosystem. Thank you once again, and all the best for your conversation.
Thank you, and also I invite you to Hyderabad.
Look forward.
We will
look forward to seeing you physically soon. Thank you so much.